We've been talking all morning about Regina's new budget proposals. Anyway, they had to crack open the budget after the provincial budget came down. And last night, a whole slew of people went to City Council to make their case, talking about what's ahead. Regina's police service facing a $1 million cut. Evan Bray is Regina's police chief, and he joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning, Sheila.
So the mayor told us last hour that they didn't even have to tell you. You went to them and said, here's how we can handle this cut.
Yeah.
So you're accepting it willingly.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, we're a part of the city of Regina, and the city of Regina is facing some real challenges as a result of these shifting in responsibilities. And so, we have a fairly large budget. We recognize that. So I think we're about 17% of the city's operating budget. And so, we thought it prudent for us to sit down and say, is there anything that we can do within our budget that doesn't affect service, doesn't affect the citizens of Regina directly, but allows us to be able to show the city that we want to try and help them for sure meet what we can in 2017 and then help whatever the strategic plan is going to be for 2018.
So what did you find? Where did you find room to trim?
I know the mayor talks a lot about reserves and not wanting to use reserves. I think it's important to note that the City of Regina reserves are used for much different purposes than our reserve. We have a single reserve, and our police reserve fund sits at about $840,000. And that really isn't used for capital projects as much as it's used for if for some reason we're over budget some year, which does not happen very often. In fact, I don't think it has in 15 years.
Is that the only purpose of it?
Well, it really is. I mean, I think it's there for the city if the city needed it. And in fact, if we wanted to use our reserve, we have to get the approval of City Council before we can use it. So we have a bit of a policy. We don't want to go below $400,000 because we don't know what kind of disasters or catastrophes or emergencies we might be facing in a year.
So you're going to pull $400,000
Yeah, so
out?
I think we thought, we could bring that down to $400,000, and that would give them $400,000 there. And then through our budget, we looked not to our operating budget because our operating budget is not only pretty lean, but it's also unpredictable. We don't know how many SWAT calls we're going to have this year, and so we don't want to cut ourselves short because we don't want to affect service delivery. But we did look at our capital budget, and some of our expenditures that we'd budgeted for and been approved for really help us bring about efficiencies within the service. And so what we suggested is not doing those in 2017.
So what kinds of things?
Well, one example I give is that we have the ability for people to report crime online. If it's something that we don't need police to come out to, they can report it online. But when they report it online, that online reporting tool doesn't talk directly to our records management system. So we need civilian police personnel to take that report and transcribe it into ours. We had budgeted just over $100,000 for a program that would basically direct link that information. So those civilian police personnel could be used for other types of work and instead of basically this data transfer. So it's not a necessity, obviously, but we think it would be kind of an efficiency piece. That's, one example.
Okay. What about layoffs, salaries?
No. Yeah, no, the mayor was very clear when we first started talking about this that he didn't want to impact jobs in any way. I know the city of Regina has put a hiring freeze through City Hall. As far as the police goes, we don't have a lot of vacancies right now. But again, really, reduction in staff equates to a reduction in service delivery. And when we're talking about community safety, that's not something that we're interested in doing. And we had a really good conversation with both the mayor and Chris Holden, the city manager, about that. And so that's not on the table for us. But we're definitely going to have some challenges if we look at, reduced budgets and cuts going into 2018.
Well, that's it. So you can only put programs on hold indefinitely. And if you've used up it sounds like your disposable part of your reserves, where does that leave you in 2018?
It's a real challenge. The police budget, one thing that I'm always quick to tell people is that 89% of our budget is human resources. So
what is your total?
$84.5 million.
Okay.
So 89% of it goes to human resources, which is really what we are. We're a human service industry. So how we deliver service in the community outside of a few cars and gasoline in the police cars really comes down to the men and women that do the job. So when you look at 89% of our budget being human resources, then that leaves us 11% of our budget to try and find some efficiencies in operating expenses. And so we wiggle around a little bit. We've put, for example, we replace furniture and computers on. We have kind of a rotation. We've put that on hold. There's little things that we're trying to do that, eventually will catch up with you. You can maybe get through a year or two without doing some of these things, but eventually you're going to have to do it.
So 2018 is when the chickens come home.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a farm guy. I like that analogy. It's going to be a challenge because we had some plans at the police service and how we were going to grow to enhance community safety. Lots of collaborative efforts going on right now with education and health, and yet we're all feeling cuts in our respective fields.
You've got some new challenges too. You've got marijuana policing coming up pretty soon. You got more money in the budget last year, which the mayor said was needed because of increased crime, increased gun crime.
Right.
So, you've got some big challenges ahead when it comes to policing.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, you look at the prevalence of firearms. In fact, last time I was in here chatting with you, Sheila, we talked about firearms. We talked about drugs in our community. The legalization of marijuana, which is just over a year away, is going to present some new issues in terms of roadway safety, traffic safety. Freedom of information, which is coming into effect for our police service this year, is not something that on the external side, people are going to see a difference in service delivery, but internal, we have to resource and staff for that. So you're right. 2018 isn't going to be less challenging for us, and yet finances are going to be a real challenge. So we got to roll our sleeves up.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Awesome. Thanks, Sheila.